Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rich Entrup. I'm the Global CIO at Christie's. I've been with the company a little over 4 months now. I've got global responsibility for both IT and digital. And I've heard the term legacy companies over the last few hours, and I've heard a couple of companies that were 100 years old. We're actually 2.5 centuries old. So from a digital transformation perspective, you can imagine the challenges that we face with regards to changing the culture within the company. So I've got 3 esteemed panelists with me today, all of which come from, I think, digital companies. So the term transformation may not be quite applicable. These are digital companies. I'm actually a client of at least 2 and very happy with the services and products that they produce. So I'm looking forward to learning a few things about their challenges, their opportunities, and also what's coming in the future within their own respective organizations. So we're going to ask them to make brief introductions for each one and then ask them to frame 3 questions following their introductions. The first question will relate to just how the organization embraces digital technology. Not so much the word transformation, but I think acceleration, as Lou coined it earlier in the week, which is very relevant to their business, but also innovation. The second question will be regarding data and analytics and how their companies embrace data and utilize data to create these new products and services in support of innovation. And then the third question will be more about emerging technologies. What's in their future roadmap? Things like AI and IoT and AR and VR. And what are those future things that your organizations are looking at, and how are you supporting those? So,
we're all trying to figure out which of the 3 of us you're not using as a client right now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
So I guess we'll start with, on my left is Joanne, who's the CTO at Travelclick. So introduction, and then those 3 questions.
Thank you, Richard. So my name is Joanne. I have the role of CTO/CIO of Travelclick. For those of you who don't know, Travelclick is a technology products business. We produce SaaS-based solutions for travel and hospitality, mainly hoteliers. Some of you may have used our technology without knowing it because we white label it to the hotels. You may have gone onto a hotel's website. That could have been done by us. You could have gone to shop for rooms, to go book a holiday weekend or some business travel, and that could have been us. And a lot of what we also do is behind the scenes for the hotels. We also have a significant data business by which we collect hotel rates, hotel inventory data from pretty much all the hotels around the world and package that back up as part of providing a data analytics solution and business to our industry and to our hotelier customers. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. So I think when Richard frames up these questions, we are a technology or digital business. So maybe it's less of a trying to transform our business. We've lived this from the get-go. I think part of what I'll share is for us to continue to be a legitimate player in our business, we have to, maybe the age-old term, we have to eat our own dog food. And so to be able to portray ourselves and to present technology, digital solutions, web technologies, mobile technologies, data-based solutions to our customer base, we as a business have to demonstrate that we actually do that ourselves. And it has to come through our sales force, our product teams, and how we present ourselves. So especially in the context of data, we've done a lot of things to try to continue to move down that line. When we go and sell our data products, our salespeople have to understand the customer through the data that we've collected. We have collected so much data about a hotel and its competitive set on its rates, its position on what's booked inventory versus not. And so our salespeople, and when we go meet a customer, we have a lot of intelligence about that customer before we enter in. And so to demonstrate that we are a data or digital business is to demonstrate we know something about that customer. Right. Would be the worst thing to do is try to sell our products and demonstrate that we don't know, we don't even use that information we have. So that's been a big push of ours. So maybe it's less technology based, but it's much more about people, process, driving that culture to make sure that we can live true to what we're supposed to be helping our customers with. Maybe the commentary I'd make.
That's great, Joe. The last piece for you was what's on the horizon from an emerging technology perspective for your organization with regards to some of the emerging trends within tech.
I was maybe more focused on our data, our data business. We continue to, there's been always a transition. We've had the typical analyst, data scientist mining the data, looking for these trends. We're actually moving more away from that and applying machine learning technologies to such, because partly, let's face it, these experts in being able to mine the data are quite precious resource. They're very hard to get, hard to retain. They're quite expensive. And for that matter, we can't keep up with the velocity of the types of insights that we're trying to obtain via the data that we have. So we're applying technologies along that line, a lot of open source technologies. They're probably not, it's not so much that the technologies themselves are so out of the box. It's more of how we're going to apply those to get that velocity and to get those kind of automated data insights so we can plow that back into our product line.
Very good, thank you. So next up is Lou Steinberg, CTO at TD Ameritrade, one of the, well, I'm a customer for both the banking and brokerage, so very happy. Maybe Lou, you can share a little bit about your perspective on the matter.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know TD Ameritrade, I'll talk to our marketing people, because you should. We are the largest retail broker on the street, roughly 7 million clients, roughly 700 billion worth of client assets on deposit. And we were born digital. We use technology to commoditize what used to be done with people, which is stock trading, right? There used to be a stock broker you had to call on the phone. So the move to online trading, the move to mobile trading, we tend to lead in those categories. So I agree, digital transformation for us isn't really about transforming to something new. It's really about change in how we develop and bring stuff to market. What we've seen is the ecosystem has shifted from working with somebody representing a line of business to more and more really working closely with clients and partners and having tight feedback loops between them and us so that we know how people are using technology and what features they want more of and what features they don't. That leads to a need for more and more agility in the development process. So some of the challenges we've had as we've shifted towards sort of a high-speed, high-agility environment begins with application development. The shift to agile, it has been, I'll say, misunderstood by a number of people. Some folks are expecting it to give us dramatic throughput, when in fact what it's designed to give us is the ability to change quickly. We also approached agile in a way kind of like a python eating an elephant, right? Let's just start at the front end and work our way into this thing, which is great until you've got teams that are producing, quick releases of code running into a legacy QA system that's not designed to handle, a large number of small releases, or the packaging and release system. So we've had a couple of challenges there. The shift towards microservices that are necessary to enable agility. I can't really change my software and have to re-QA some big monolithic thing all the way down to the database every single time and be responsive to the market. And then lastly, and this gets into the data, there's a need to capture a lot of data about how technology is being used. So if you're going to have a tight feedback loop with your clients, one of the things you want to do is not focus groups. You want to collect data on click streams. You want to know how mobile applications are being used, and you want to know your customers' behavior. There's a whole thread of security around, behavioral analytics, but down to almost a segment of one, we can start to predict if you have certain stocks in your portfolio, I know what you're inclined to buy next. And when you start to look for advice or recommendations, we can begin to build profiles around client behavior, risk tolerance, what they're inclined to like and dislike. And that helps us bring a more personalized product into the market. You asked where we're going next. I guess AI is the buzzword. right? So machine learning is a big piece of consuming this data and tuning the models as we go. A lot of investment going on in that. A lot of investment going on in new systems of engagement. What if the next UI is no UI? If it is truly all voice or chatbots or plugins to Messenger. So we're looking at all those kinds of things. I have to say blockchain. I'm required by law, I think, to say blockchain at least twice a day now. So blockchain, done. There's some efficiencies around having a distributed database where books and records are kept at the street level and automatically synchronized. The interesting thing with blockchain will actually be smart contracts, when you can embed contract terms and triggers into assets like shares of stock and have them move when certain conditions are met. So there's new stuff coming on there. I think the biggest thing of all of it, though, and something we're trying to figure out, is when you take in all of this data, when you understand what your clients want, when you can figure out where things are going, what do you do with it, right? So it can yield incremental improvements in our product and technology, and that's great. And we have an advanced tech team building stuff and handing it off to the app dev teams, wonderful. On the other hand, when what you learn from it is you need to do something entirely new, you need to do something disruptive to your existing business, now you've got a different problem, right? And we're working through that challenge now.
That's great, thank you. So lastly is Jane Landon. Jane is the CTO at web.com.
Hi, everybody. I don't want to actually reiterate everything that everyone said, but we are a company that is a digital company. But I would say we still are in transformation because the velocity that the marketplace is actually bringing today is commoditizing products and services. Oh, my God. Excuse me. That we
I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to call you. That was a pocket dial.
that we actually deliver it, quite frankly, almost as fast as you can deliver them. They get commoditized today. And so I would say anybody who is in technology, if you don't, I wish I could find it and pause. Thank you. The fact is that if you're in this business, you've got to always be in a state of transformation.
Right.
And so that is literally where we are today as a company. We are doing all of the same types of things that these gentlemen are doing, as far as kind of getting to the DevOps, increasing velocity, having to actually work very close with customers as well as with product people who actually engage with customers to actually design our products and services and make them more attractive for specific sets and getting down to kind of a segment of one. On the horizon for us, we're getting into the web collection data, or kind of the internet collection of data, and really actually pulling data out of the web. We're a company that acquires, quite a few companies. We originally acquired, two very large domain companies that made us the second largest domain provider in the world. And that was literally, for our marketplace, which are micro businesses, was a way to actually get a leads list, right? That was one of the first things that we kind of looked at that. Today, that's not necessarily the case, that actually works as a good start. So what we're finding is there's a lot more rich data and information on the internet. Our services are changing and maturing. And so we're using the internet to collect information, and we're also starting to experiment with AI just for the same reason, which is the data scientists are expensive. They have to have a theory going in. Quite frankly, machines are a little bit better at actually identifying patterns and actually getting you to actually focus in on areas that create better opportunities. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
That's great, thank you. So you guys just blew through that in less time than I expected. We've got 15 more minutes, so I have tons of questions, but I'm going to push back to the audience and see if anyone has any questions for the panel. so no questions.
Are we in the right room?
Are we in the right room?
Security? So I have a question. So with regards to innovation around new products and services within your companies, which are all digital companies, who are the players besides yourselves that you're teamed with from the governance perspective? And what are the forums whereby which you guys are sharing information and having these think tank sessions to think about innovation and finding these new disruptive products and services? How does that happen?
So outside of our organization, so companies that we're partnering with outside of our organization, well, first of all, there's probably also beyond what we do as a company, we've always had white labeling. And so we have some very, very large clients who purchase products through us with their own brands. And we partner with them quite often in kind of thinking about how we actually do business. And many of them are even technology companies like us, so there's a sharing of ideas. But I would also tell you that as a company who fundamentally, underneath the covers, we're a cloud company, we're a hosting company, underneath the covers, we also are partnering from the government all the way down to many companies that are in the security space, because it's one of those things where I thought, growing up in technology, that I really would never be involved in this. And now today, my life is probably 30% of every day is spent around security. And that's a change that has occurred over the last 5 years. I long for the days of 6 kids in a garage, trying to break in, as opposed to nation states and people looking to actually get some financial gain.
So Jane, besides yourself, are there others at the table that are looking at technology innovations like the CMO,
Absolutely.
Chief Digital? Or
So no, we don't have somebody yet, but I think we might actually soon, like a Chief Digital Officer. I was quite actually impressed with how many people came up and spoke and had that as a title. But we do have, I would say from a perspective, our product management, because we're a technology company, their role really is around kind of that digital marketing officer. So that's really the partnership. They do the research side, they kind of come up with the theories, and then we actually help them execute on those things and add to their kind of thinking about what's possible. So it's...
That's great, thank you. Lou, how about TD Ameritrade?
Yeah, so we have 3 different components to our innovation sourcing strategy. The first is relatively new. It's an innovation council. It includes our chief marketing officer. It includes representation from the business heads, certainly technology. Compliance is in there. Legal is in there, mostly to keep us from running into the weeds or something worse. And so there's a set of sort of almost innovation requirements is the way to think of it, coming out of that. The second, I'm going to cheat, it does report into me, is a group called Advanced Technology. This is something I stood up a few years back, and I've done this a couple of times, because we noticed that product teams weren't taking risk. They were being measured on hitting their targets, on deliverable dates and functionality, and they would take small incremental risk, but they wouldn't try something dramatically new and different because they might fail. And if they're not willing to take risk and potentially fail, you only get incremental innovation. And so we stood up a group that's funded like a venture capitalist would fund, where we said if we let the product teams be capitalists to the upside and socialists to the downside, we'll fund this other group to try new innovative stuff. We're going to measure them on their exits into the product groups. So they're funded, they've got a portfolio. Some of their stuff can fail as long as the fund makes money over time, and we value the exits that they produce that get picked up and used in everything from fingerprint scanning to Alexa skills to all kinds of AI stuff has come out of that team. The third pillar is our associates at large. We started about 5 years ago with hackathons. If you're not doing these, you should. And 3 years ago, we expanded them from being technology-centric to including the business. And so now what happens, our new flavor of hackathons, in fact, just started, the current one just started this week. Any associate across the business can come up with an innovative idea, whatever they see a need for internally or in the market, and then they get teamed up with developers who want to help them create it as part of the hackathon. And so we have a business-centered, client-centered hackathon instead of just a traditional tech hackathon. We opened for 72 hours for people to do the ideation. And in the current one that we closed at midnight last night, the ideation phase, we had 312 ideas that came out of our associates for new innovations. And they're going to now go through a contest.
That's great. Thank you. Joe, how about you guys?
Yeah, to build on Lou's part, maybe the innovative aspects that I take most pleasure over seeing is the ones that are more, that come out of less formal, maybe your third category, less formal circles. And so, I'm sure we've all been through this. We have committees, and we will have,
task forces.
There's another term of a committee, a task force, a task force for a committee or a committee for a task force to study a market, and we work with customers and we work with technology partners. I'm sure as Jane has brought up, but I think the thing that we've enjoyed the most and seen the most energy around is that the informality, or the ones that come through that circle, or coming from the rank and file, so to speak, through the organization. So I think those are very hard to do, because those, the more you try to organize them, then you turn them into committees and task forces. Right. I think it's, again, goes to about setting the culture in the organization, about allowing people to have some time to go look at things, play around with things. There's always a challenge of, hey, we still got work to do. We have deliverables, and how do you find that balance? But we as leaders have to give our people some space and allow that kind of happen. And when we have these, when we do have these sessions or reviews with different people, then see how that kind of comes out and try to tease out the different things that come about, whether through hackathon type of structures, or just more of when you're having a team meeting with a particular product development group or particular location. You're getting those set of people together, say what's going on, and you'll be surprised that if you kind of stimulate that over time, all this stuff will start coming out. We've seen our machine learning stuff has come out of that, or had some origin from that. Some of the things that we've done with finding other insights of the data have come through that. So I think if I had to pick on one, that would be the one that gets the most satisfaction.
So who within the organization fosters that bottom up through the ranks to get that information up to the top?
Yeah,
people assume the top should be defining the strategy.
It's a tough thing.
When the fact is the best ideas are going to come from the bottom.
Yeah,
how do you foster that safety net to let them have that voice to provide those?
Yeah, it's a tough thing, because I'd say it's if you say it's everyone, this thing, everyone does it, that means no one does it. Right. You have to make someone in charge. But in this case, we've really had to foster this as a culture across not just tech, with our product teams and the like. And I think we've had to build on smaller cases and show that we mean it.
Right.
You start these things and say, we want to do innovation, and what does that mean? And it's to try to take a case, take a person, take a small team's ideas, and kind of put it up as the poster child. And if we start to have enough poster child examples, actually starts to, I think, send a message through the teams that we actually mean it, because you show it through what you do as opposed to just talking about it. Right. So that's been a challenge. So as much as it's really a cultural aspect that we hold our leaders accountable to.
Okay, great, thank you. So I've got tons of more questions. We've got 5 more minutes. I'm going to go back to the audience. Does anyone have any questions you want to pose to the panelists? Yes.
I'm just curious, a question to everyone. Has a move away from caring about physical infrastructure assets and servers and stuff, has that been part of your journey over the last number of years?
I can tell you that it's not been part of mine yet, although we do have, we have relationships again with partners, as well as we have some parts of our business where we just don't see it as our core, where we've moved to cloud services. But it's generally driven by a software side. As a hosting company, we've been in the cloud. When I can make the economics work, and I look at it every single year, that it makes sense for me to actually not have the infrastructure, I will not have infrastructure. But right now, economically, it makes sense for us to be in.
Yeah, it really is a financially driven,
Yeah.
gets down to be a financially driven thing as
CapEx.
opposed to a statement of, oh, that's what everybody has to do.
Yeah.
So it's a yes and no for me. We've had examples where certain parts of the infrastructure make sense to go that way. We've had a bunch of internal types of technologies that are more used by our team members, and that made sense to go that way and get it as a subscription or that kind of model. But at the same time, a lot of our core business still runs as data center infrastructure. We set up the stack and run it that way, and we haven't found the economics to really play into that. So we assess that on an economics basis.
I'd like to add one more thing to that too. I'm looking right now, and I really don't think that the market has come there. I see consulting firms growing up in this space, but really to be able to manage the cost of all of the cloud services that go out, it can tip. I think the fact that consulting services are kind of springing up all over the place to actually try to solve the problem of my cloud services have gotten out of control with all of kind of the move there. Everybody moving fast there. The market that we serve, these micro businesses, we work on very, very slim margin to make sure that we can actually deliver products that these customers can afford. And so when I think about something, I'm looking before I actually would go wholehearted, even if I could look at the economics of what I think it would be, without the kind of controls in place to actually say it can't just go wild.
Right.
So,
Luke, how about you guys? You have a
Yeah,
large environment?
we're kind of in between. So we care about the economics. We've got enough economy of scale that, paying for somebody else's computer where they have to charge a margin on it may or may not make sense for us. We are moving some things into the cloud. I think the journey that we're on, and so I'm going to do a little, Svengali prediction here. I think the journey we're on is we're going to push the systems of engagement into the cloud. Maybe because of money, maybe because of agility, definitely because the experience of having sort of the performance where the system of engagement points are next to the client, not back in my data center, make a ton of sense. Anybody doing any kind of big data, public data mining, I don't want in my data center. I want that hosted somewhere else. Like, why would I want Twitter sentiment analysis to be dragged into my data center to reflect it back out? So we'll use cloud for public data. We use cloud for the client edge. And over time, we will probably bleed more and more from the back end into a distributed environment with other people's data centers. We're going to hold the core data, though, for a long, long time in a data bunker. And so our virtual data center is likely to end up with data that I own and control, and sort of the front end and even the systems of insight distributed out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one last piece, I think, to answer the question. I think sometimes the strategy for cloud versus hosting your own infrastructure might be regulatory driven. It might be economics, might be CFO pressure to go more OpEx than CapEx. There's a number of variables. These guys are in the cloud. They're providing services through the internet. We all are, but that's their core business. Very different, I guess, decision-making process. So, great question. We've got time for one more question.
Yeah. I would like to go back to the innovation topic. And in a large company like mine, we basically have a corporate IT, and we have plenty of people that are addicted to technology everywhere in the business. And the role of the corporate IT is to kill innovation, and the role of the people in the business is to escape the corporate IT so they can hide from it. what are your thoughts about reinventing this relationship, and instead of having them fighting each other, really work as a partner between the two?
So
Go ahead.
It'll be a
You want to go?
wrap-up.
I'm ready.
I'll start, and we can talk more offline, but there's a big push to do end-user computing, even in firms like mine, which is exactly what you're describing. I personally believe that the IT approach of trying to kill end-user computing is dumb, right? End users are trying to do what they're trying to do for a reason, and what we're tasked with is figuring out how to support that. So rather than having an end user write some code in some line of business that's running on a PC under their desk where they can kick the power cord out, what we should be doing is creating standards that allow them to put that in a VM in the data center so I can back it up and I can provide resiliency and patch it for them and do a bunch of things that they're not going to want to do anyway. And so rather than fighting things like EUC, I actually think what we need is just enough structure around it to enable it. And then when it gets big enough, it obviously comes into the IT machine.
I think you might be asking a different question when you say you work for a large organization, because I worked for Chase Manhattan Bank at one time, and I was in their emerging technologies organization. And this could go back even 15 years ago when I was doing this and kind of started in that space. Is you have to almost find specialized people for that innovation, because white paper writers don't go anyplace, right? If they're writing white papers, they're doing the research just to do research and figuring out, they don't go anyplace. But actually having them be consultants to the business. So if they're working on AI and they think that they've got a great idea, I mean, that was kind of my problem. I actually started that within Chase, where I was the first to be charged at $1,000 a day to go out with new technology, concepts that we were working, whether it was, AI, whether it was, neural networks or image processing technology back in the day, to go out to work with the business on actually executing and implementing it. So you were a partner with the other technology groups, because you have probably in a large corporation 15 CIOs who really, when they think of corporate, they're like, stay away, because this is my shop and I've got the business relationship here. And I think they can work in a different way. I think that's still true today, but you got to find a special person who has the skills to think about technology and also has capability to speak a little bit on the business terms, and that's a little bit special.
That's great. Thank you. I think we're out of time, so thank you very much to the panel.
Thank you.
Yep.